Hello everyone, this is NJ Arts, and today I'll be going over Jujutsu Kaisen, the Kyoto Sister School Goodwill event, Part 1, as a part of my manga review series. As with all my reviews, I'll go over the story and art, and then give my final rankings. I'll also be doing illustrations related to the arc in the background, and if you like what you see, check out my other platforms in the links below. Lastly, if you're not caught up to Season 3 of the anime, then possible spoilers ahead. Now, let's get into it. The arc begins with the reintroduction of Yuji to the rest of the Jujutsu High, and I really like how Gojo was trying to lift Yuji's spirits after, everything that happened last time. And this plan to surprise everyone and Nobara and Megumi's reaction to it is pretty funny, and it is nice to see that those two do care and were only really upset that Yuji was alive and just didn't tell them. Next up, but technically before that, we get the introduction to the Kyoto students, and on a first watch, these guys looked way more imposing than they turned out to be. I mean, Todo and Mekamaru kind of just mauled all the other students, and Kamo came very close to joining them, but then a better blood user came along. But these other three, being Miwa, Mai, and Momo, are really just kind of fodder when it comes down to it, and wait, Miwa, Mai, Momo... I see why people say that Gege hates his female cast. It makes sense now. Okay, but jokes aside, even though we find out they're fodder later, they actually are pretty formidable challenges for our other characters at this point in the series, and they do serve their purpose for this arc. Before the team battle begins, we get some team meetings and strategy talk, which I really enjoy. Most shonen manga have this kind of tournament arc, which this story seems to be setting up in a similar way, and I'm a sucker for tournament arcs, but I do like how this one did it a little differently with a team battle instead of just more direct one-on-ones. Even though it kind of does just evolve into one-on-ones eventually, the team battle aspect is still there, with characters jumping into each other's battles or each side being cautious at all times for other characters to make a move. It's really fun to see all these different characters and techniques interacting, and it makes me wish that we could have seen another kind of direct team battle in this way later. I also really like how the Kyoto side has been instructed to kill Yuji. It adds another layer to the battle and gives this event real stakes beyond just which side will win. And shout out to Todo for being Todo in this scene. Again, he'd be unbearable to deal with in real life, but we still love him. Also, it's really funny how serious he is about his idol Takeda. Like, he really is not playing around about being a superfan. After the meetings and reunions are finished up, both sides take the stage and the battle begins. And pretty much immediately, Todo tries to take on all of Jujutsu High so as to not be bored. And in response to this, Jujutsu High sends Yuji to handle Todo in a one-on-one. Now, I didn't fully understand why Todo was so liked at this point, but this next sequence fully converted me into a Todo believer because Todo asks his signature question, and Yuji's response is the exact same type as Todo, and thus a memory was born within Todo that never existed. Now, I'm not kidding when I say this might be the funniest moment in the whole manga for me. Todo gets so emotional about Yuji's response that he just makes up an entire backstory for them. That's crazy and hilarious and comes completely out of left field. Like, look at this guy, he's genuinely crying about it, and no one could ever beat us in middle school. Like, what? That's just such a corny and hilarious line. I love everything about this scene, and from this moment on, I was a full Todo believer. Interrupting this clash of best friends, the Kyoto students all go after Yuji at once to try and kill him, and kudos for Yuji for catching on quick about what's going on, but this gets stopped by Todo with a tease of what his technique is. And you'd think, oh, Todo and Yuji will now fight them together, but nope. Todo is intent on continuing to fight Yuji one-on-one, and is even content with possibly killing him if Yuji is not strong enough. Man, being Todo's best friend must be like really difficult. But I do like this development too, so we can quickly get back into the broader team battle and have more time to focus on just Yuji and Todo. After the Kyoto students leave, Yuji and Todo continue their battle, and I don't think it's anything special in terms of choreography and action. It's pretty straightforward with a few cool moves by Yuji, but I think this fight is meant to showcase Todo's absurd personality more than anything, and give a way for Yuji to develop further as a sorcerer. This scene gets another anime buff due to the soundtrack that plays, but Todo teaching Yuji about controlling his cursed energy better was really very beautiful, with this drawing of Yuji surrounded by nature and Todo's surprisingly wise words. It was really nice, and a personal favorite moment of mine. The soundtrack that plays in the anime is called Put It in This Fist. Go listen to it, it's peak. After that, we get this beautiful double spread, and then move on to the rest of the team battle. Megumi knocking Momo out of the sky like this is great. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but the 10 Shadows is such a cool technique, and Nue has an awesome design. And Momo's reaction and realization to what's about to happen is overall just funny. After this, each character kind of splits off and takes on their own 1v1. Going down the list, we'll start with Panda and Mekamaru. I think this fight is pretty decent. It's got some pretty strong panels and really sells the impact of every hit from Panda, but I really like the themes of this fight the most. As we learn, Mechamaru was born with glass bones and paper skin and lives out his life through the eyes of this lifeless puppet. Meanwhile, Panda is an actual doll that was granted life and autonomy through Principal Yaga. So not only is Mechamaru forced to live his life through this doll, but now he's facing another doll that, by his viewpoints, has no right to be alive and free while he's forced to just rot away in this tub, unable to even go outside due to his condition. It's an excellent encounter for these characters and does a lot to establish Mechamaru and really make you feel for him. Like, he was only around for about 2 chapters, and by the end you already see him as this tragic character and you feel really bad for him. We also get an explanation to what Panda is finally, and some deeper characterization for him. His views on humanity are pretty interesting, and again, it's another thing that just makes me wish we were actually able to delve more into Panda later in the series. Overall, I think this is a good encounter, and it also shows how deceit plays a big role into Jujutsu battles, with Mechamaru explaining his technique under the guise of just talking about his backstory, and with Panda fooling Mechamaru with the number of cores he has and the position of them. In the end, Panda is able to get the win, and we technically move on to Maki versus Miwa, and then Mai, but I want to cover Nobara versus Momo first. This fight was actually a little better for me on a reread. It's not a direct clash in terms of hands, but more a long-range jutsu battle, given the techniques of Nobara and Momo. But this move by Momo here is actually pretty clean. This is another battle that focuses more on themes than the actual fight. Momo's critique of the Jujutsu world and the Zenin clan is really good, and she brings up good points about how women in Jujutsu society are expected to be perfect. It really shows this very old, outdated mindset that the higher-ups enforce, and gives an insight to how awful the Zenin clan really is. She might be underplaying it here though, because I'm pretty sure with the king of misogyny around, all women are not treated fairly in the Zenin clan, not just some, like she says. Nobara's response is also pretty great. Does that mean we have to forgive the unfortunate no matter the circumstance, and if someone is blessed with a fortunate life, do they deserve to be ridiculed? I think this is a great line and really emphasizes personal accountability. Yes, circumstances are important, but people still need to hold some responsibility for themselves too. This definitely got me to like Nobara a little bit more, and her next line about liking the part of her that dresses up and the part of her that is strong, while a bit corny, is a nice line, and she delivers her resonance knocking Momo off her broom and then going in to clobber her with this toy hammer, really funny. But before she can finish the job, Mai snipes her with a rubber bullet, effectively taking her out of the battle. This is probably Mai's only feat in the series, by the way. I really didn't expect to have much to say about this section, as Momo's kind of irrelevant after Arame blocks her attack in Shibuya, and Nobara wasn't really a character I just had much interest in the beginning, but the conversation and the points both sides made were really insightful and made for a pretty good dialogue between the two. Now to wind back the clock, let's discuss Maki versus Miwa and eventually Mai. Before that begins, I want to briefly discuss Meimei's introduction, as she's the one responsible for relaying the recordings of the battle back to the teachers through her Blackbird manipulation technique. In my Junpei arc video, I mentioned a mysterious groomer who has this theme of losing humanity in the pursuit of worldly desires, and yeah, this is her. We can kind of see it already with how her allegiances are with whoever pays the most, already telling us that she doesn't have super high morals if she can just be bought like that, and we'll go over her and her activities more later in another video. But for now, where Nanami shows the pursuit of money and not doing what is meaningful to him was slowly killing him and taking away his soul, Meimei's whole life truly is just devoted to the bag, and the result is a pretty shady and immoral person. Alright, now I promise this time we're actually going to talk about Maki, who is probably Gege's best female character, given that she does get the most spotlight out of any others, but she's also just written really well. She's definitely mellowed out in comparison to her JJK Zero days and is way more likable here. Her battle with Miwa doesn't have much in terms of themes, it's just a straightforward battle, and Maki pretty cleanly wipes the floor with her. I don't have much else to say about this or Miwa's character. She's genuine and sweet, probably the most normal of the Kyoto students, but she, like Momo, loses her relevance after Shibuya, just in a much more embarrassing way. Although this moment here is really funny, and that's a cool transition to get into their battle. Moving on back to the present, we have Maki versus Mai. And again, I'm kind of starting to notice that a lot of these battles are really more just themes and writing than hype moments and aura. Anyone who says Gege can only do hype moments and aura really needs to reread or rewatch this arc. I think aside from Todo and Yuji, this is the most interesting and inevitable conflict within the team battle. We know there's some bad blood between these sisters, and we know a bit about the Zenin clan, and I think Gege delivered on their conflict. Now, I was also surprised to see this took place in just one chapter. It does make sense given that this fight is another straightforward Maki dog walk, but Gege is super efficient, yet again, with the writing. Maki choosing to be a sorcerer and thus dragging Mai into a life she didn't desire is really heartbreaking for both their characters. Neither character really did anything wrong, it's just a product of their family, the Zenin clan. Maki should have the freedom to be a sorcerer, and Mai should have the freedom to choose and stay at home, but the Zenin clan forces Mai to become a sorcerer just to spite Maki, and given Maki wants to live her life by her own choices, it's hard to blame her for the decision despite what it does to Mai. All this is not to mention that their options from the start weren't very great either. Mai and Maki grew up in a family that never really loved them. They were both ridiculed to the point that Maki decided to become a sorcerer and put her life at risk every day, and Mai would have been content as a servant in an abusive family. It's really tragic and shows more of the darker side of Jujutsu society. As well as one of the big three families, I do genuinely feel for Mai in these moments, because for her, Maki did kind of abandon her despite their promise as kids, and knowing how Mai's story ends, these final pages of the chapter definitely hit. As I said before, Mai is a character who does more service to build Maki up than herself, but for what characterization she gets, it's pretty good, and yeah, it does do a good job in adding to Maki's character as well. Now to close out this section of the arc, we get our final battle being Megumi versus Kamo. Before that, I'll address the cursed spirits in the room being the appearance of Mahito and Hanami. Now, this was still when I was anime only, and the second OP spoiled Hanami's appearance, even though it was awesome. But if you aren't expecting it, this comes as a great reveal, especially after building up this semi-grade 1 spirit only for it to immediately be exercised by Hanami. This double page spread is awesome, and this nonsense conversation between Inumaki and Hanami is really funny. But also, please Inumaki run, you're not built for this. Quick shout out as well to Inumaki using Mekamaru's phone to put Miwa to sleep. It's a cool way to catch the Kyoto students off guard with cursed speech, which they were all wary of, and it's another strategy within this team battle that I really enjoyed. Now, back to Megumi vs. Kamo, another short battle. I think this fight had a good mix of fighting and themes. Kamo's another character I have sympathy for. I don't know what it is, but this moment of him as a child asking why his mom is treated so poorly always makes me feel bad for him. Like, he really is just a kid thrust into this terrible society. And I liked how he's sort of playing the part as heir, just so that his mother has a place in the clan. He really doesn't care about all this Jujutsu stuff at the end of the day. It's a nice little twist on his character. Bloody manipulation is also a really cool technique, and an interesting way to see it used by effectively doping himself. It makes it stand out more compared to most blood powers we see in anime. This fight also goes into Megumi's connection to the Zenin, which was mentioned earlier but kind of as like a throwaway line. But here, it's delved into more with revealing the 10 shadows to be the prize technique of the Zenin, and that somehow Megumi has no connection to them. It sets up a more intrigue for Megumi and his past, and further characterizes that Megumi really does just kind of do whatever he wants to do, and not what society expects him to do. What a rebel. Also, time for another anime tax moment, because yup, Jujutsu Sorcerer Megumi Fushiguro, one of my favorite tracks as we all know, once again plays during this climactic scene of Megumi summoning Max Elephant. Not only a cool reveal to a new Shikigami, but also just a sick design. And just as the fight seems to be getting more serious, we get this awesome double page spread as Hanami and Inumaki interrupt the battle, thus leading into the attack onto the school, which we will discuss next time in part 2. This section of the story has a lot more character writing than I remembered. Maybe it's because the fights were given more flash in the anime, but the manga really gives that emphasis on the characters and their interactions more than the actual battles, which I really appreciated. And that's not to say we didn't get cool moments of action in this section either, but I think Gege's saving all the real hype and aura for the next part. Overall, I'd have to say my favorite moment is hands down Todo and Yuji's whole interaction, mostly for just how funny it is, and for how quickly it sells you on Todo's character, but I'd say Mai and Maki's battle was also probably a close second, just for how effectively Gege was at portraying their conflict in such a short amount of time. My dislikes for this arc would probably be just how quickly the team battle aspect dissolves. There are still moments throughout the 1v1s where teamwork comes into play, but I would have liked to have seen a little more of this before everyone just broke off and took on strict 1v1s. Also, I know he'll do a little more in the next section, but way too little Inumaki for this. Even if the purpose was for him to hide and make you wonder when he'll attack, I would have liked to see more of him as a personal Inumaki fan. Now with all the story stuff done, let's move into the art. This era of art is what I like to call the pre-Colon Games era. This art is closer to Gege during Shibuya rather than the beginning, but it's still being refined. Pages and action scenes are much clearer, and we're seeing consistent character designs across the board and more creative paneling. I particularly like the designs of Mekamaru and Kamo. Mekamaru is a robot, so obviously that's a cool design, but Gege also had an interesting interpretation that makes him look almost organic. It's really cool. And Kamo is given this more traditional look, given his place within the Kamo clan, a more conservative group, and he pulls it off really well, and he feels way more distinguished from his other classmates. Something I haven't mentioned too much before is the look of the 10 Shadows technique too. I really like the effect of the shadows when Megumi does his hand signs, and the way Gege makes the shadows look like this weird gloopy liquid as the Shikigami emerge is really cool. And it goes without saying that the designs for all the Shikigami are awesome as well. As I mentioned, Nue and Max Elephant have cool designs, but I really like these frog guys too. All of them are great. I also really like this first page of Maki versus Miwa. I just think the composition is nice, and Gege does this a lot, but I really enjoy these moments where he breaks out of the panels. They're really fun. I think my favorite pages come from these double spreads of Todo and Yuji, and then this one of Hanami though. The poses on Todo and Yuji is just great and shows each of their characters really well, and I like how they're overlaid over these images of their fake backstory. It really makes it look like this is some epic clash between longtime friends when they really just met. It's cool and funny at the same time. And this page of Hanami is just a great in-your-face reveal. Not only does Hanami have a great design as well, with these branch eyes being particularly creepy, but just letting Hanami take up the entire page really sells the impact of the reveal, and it makes for a great page turn, almost like one of those jump scares in book format that Gege did back in the Curse Womb arc. That about wraps up my thoughts on the art. It feels very solidified and consistent, but not too crazy either for this section, but I have a feeling that's Gege saving up for the real show next time. Overall, part 1 of the Kyoto Sister Goodwill event, while leaving a little to be desired with the whole team battle aspect, absolutely delivered in its character interactions and in keeping the stakes high despite it being meant to be a more low stakes event. And I thoroughly enjoyed my reread and the new perspectives it gave me. I'm going to rank the entire arc together after my next video, but if I had to grade this section alone, I'd just give it a B+. Thank you all for watching till the end. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like and subscribe, and comment what you like the most about this section of JJK, or just anything in general. And tune in next time for the conclusion of the arc as well as the death painting arc. I'll see you all then.